My next read, I'm going to the Dogs. I'm picking this one just because we don't get the chance to talk about Georgia very much. And they are the clear-cut number one team in America. And guess what, folks? Watch out now. They're getting better at almost everything, almost every day, every game. Carson Beck has gotten better every game. This will be by far his most difficult test. Auburn is a train wreck on offense. They had more plays last week than passing yards. Do you know how hard that is to do in college football? 64 plays, I think like 56 yards passing. So I don't think they're going to score on Georgia's defense at all, which is still working through some minor details, but they're still pretty damn good. This is all about what do we learn about Carson Beck, the running back situation, which is still a large question for Georgia. But Brock Bowers is starting to get targeted more and more and more. You see him being used more in the offense. Ladd McConkey could be back healthy. You're starting to see the game plan. They're putting the pieces together for Carson Beck. And so this game, the reason I wanted to talk about it was I want to learn about Georgia in its toughest situation to date, Carson Beck in his toughest start to date against a quality Auburn defense on the road in a hostile environment. Do you make the throws on third down at any point during the game? That's what I'm watching. That's what I want to learn, because I think that's going to teach us something about Georgia where I don't know if we've been taught anything so far about how good Georgia can or will be.
I wish I had something other insightful to add to what you said, but I would probably echo my interest level in this game is learning about Georgia, because they played South Carolina, which was I think South Carolina is probably a top 40-ish type of team. Auburn is probably somewhere in that range as well right now. But I think going on the road, Carson Beck making this start, he's getting better each week, but now you're going on the road to play an Auburn defense that, last week created some havoc at the line of scrimmage against Texas A&M. It's clearly the strength of this team. Secondary and defensive front could create some problems for Georgia. So I think Georgia feels like it's just been stacking like things. Like they're getting a little bit better each week. They're learning about themselves. They're figuring out what they do well. They've had a lot of injuries at running back and receiver. I think Georgia's getting there. They're building to that point, but we'll find out how good and how far along they are in that process against Auburn this week. On your point on Auburn's offense, watching that game against A&M, there were open receivers and throws that should have been made, and Peyton Thorne just missed them. So that's got to improve for Auburn to have a chance to win this game. It's going to be tough, I think, for them to consistently move the ball against Georgia's defense. So they're going to need a turnover or two, a special teams break, something like that, probably to find a way to try and have any shot to steal this game.
So I want to ask you about the point spread, because I'm laying the points. This is one of my picks against the spread, Georgia minus 14.5. It makes no sense to me why this number is at 14. This strikes me as like a 34-3 game. Like I know Bullard's out. I know the running backs are banged up. Georgia's still working on its stuff, but Georgia feels like a Tetris game where you're only trying to drop the tall, skinny one into the left side, and like that's Ladd McConkey or that's the running backs. And like they're putting a perfect building block scheme together. Like, okay, now we're going to get the tight end more involved because we didn't want him to take hits. And now we're going to take Bowers and throw him the football a lot more. And we're going to focus on him. And we're going to now Carson Beck has shown us that he's good at the checkdowns. Okay, now we're going to implement some down the field stuff because McConkey's back. And, the defense is, I just don't see any movement for Auburn at all. I mean, Hugh Freeze is a very smart coach. I'm assuming he's going to have some interesting wrinkles in the offense. The crowd will be crazy. Number one coming to town always matters more to your team, especially in a really, really heated rivalry as these two are. I just don't know if it makes a difference. Georgia big here, but but that to me is what we learn, is that they're ready for a push to the national championship. If they go into Auburn and dominate and Carson Beck looks good, especially in third and long, if they're ever in third and long, that tells you a lot about where Georgia's at.
I think if you're Auburn, you're going to have that initial crowd, that initial surge. If you're Georgia, can you sort of hold on there? Because if you can jump ahead, you sort of take them out of the game. Like, I think that's the thing for me, is like Georgia's going into a hostile environment. They just come in, put their foot down, win 31-0. They're on schedule. If they come in and struggle a little bit, Carson Beck doesn't play well, then we have some more questions to debate going forward about where Georgia is in this process.
It'd be nice to have more conversations about Georgia,
welcome to the season.
I had to shoehorn them into the show today. It's like, welcome to college football, number one. Anyway, Georgia big for me. So